Yep. Okay, we are live tonight.
Great, thank you, and welcome Urban Renewal Agency board members and advisory committee members, and thank you to Grant and Rudy from our city budget committee that volunteered to round out and make our Urban Renewal Agency budget committee whole. The first item on tonight's agenda is to elect a chairperson. So just a nomination and a second, and a vote will get us there.
I nominate Grant Paulson as chair.
I'll second that.
Fine with me.
Can I point out Dave Merriweather seems to be an attendees instead of panelists?
Oh, thank you. Jonathan, can you promote him? And Gary, signing on, the city budget committee will start at 7. But you're very welcome to continue with us on the Urban Renewal Agency. Okay. Let's see. Well, I guess we'll take votes for Grant's nomination as first and seconded. I'm going to go here with my list of panelists. Amanda?
Yes.
Clint Harris?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't unmute there.
Sure. Councilor Rivera?
Aye.
Councilor Mehta?
Aye.
Councilor Zandmiller?
Yes.
Councilor Saunders?
Yes.
Councilor Cunningham?
Aye.
David Merriweather?
Yes.
Grant Polson?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Mayor McBride?
Yes.
Okay, Rudy Kellner?
Yes.
Okay, and is there anyone that I missed in my list?
Josh Chandler, yes.
Thank you. Okay, Grant, I'll let you drive the agenda.
Great. We don't need a vice, correct?
No, since it's only one meeting, we won't need a vice.
Okay, first up is the approval of the minutes from May 13th of 2020.
I will move we approve the minutes from May 13th, 2020.
I'll second.
Motion to approve the minutes from Councilor Saunders, a second from the mayor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
And opposed? Yep, minutes approved. Next up is the budget presentation.
Thank you. And I'm gonna share my screen here. So tonight, I'm going to give the budget message, and then we'll just continue on into a discussion of the specifics for the agency general fund and the 3 districts. So the budget message is on the first page of your budget document. And this is really my transmittal message about the larger themes I see going on kind of agency-wide and with urban renewal in Hood River right now. And it's really a theme of transition, where the focus was on downtown for the 90s, transitioning to waterfront in the 2000s, waterfront really being the focus in the 2010s. And now the Heights is going to take over as being kind of the primary district with all the activity. In the Heights District, that is a continuation of the MIG contract, moving into phases 2 and 3 if the agency board approves the contract amendments, building design alternatives, and then whittling down to a preferred design. In the Waterfront District, that is nearing its end of its expenditure, with roughly all the money that it's has being dedicated to the waterfront water line relocation based on a resolution adopted by the Urban Renewal Agency. And even with that, we still have a bit of a funding gap for that project. And also the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee last fiscal year adopted a recommendation to consider increasing maximum indebtedness to consider whether or not we want to do that to fund additional projects and additional development in the waterfront area. And then for Columbia Cascade, our oldest district that's transitioning out, we have to figure out what is going to be its final activities. $4.6 million, about 3 decades in operation, and $4.6 million left to deploy on projects. And so proposals are in this budget that we'll talk about when we get to that district. And I think the real big sort of overarching theme as we move from transition of, the Heights was in development while we were getting the waterfront done. Waterfront was in development while we were getting downtown done, is what does the agency see as the future of urban renewal in Hood River, if anything? This tool of tax increment financing has funded, catalysts, and I have this as an example of, districts that, from blank fields to iconic neighborhoods that everyone thinks of, across the state and maybe, region and potentially the nation when they think of Hood River. And they are, to a large extent, developments that were catalyzed with preceding urban renewal investment. So it'll be on the Urban Renewal Agency's plate, I think, this year and next year to consider if that is a tool that we want to continue to use, or if it's time to phase that out and move on to other tools and funding mechanisms for other areas of Hood River that need help funding infrastructure investments and catalyzing development in the way that the Urban Renewal Agency wants to see it. So with that sort of broad overview, I'll start digging into the various districts, and we can stop for questions. So the Urban Renewal Agency General Fund is where shared expenses that benefit all 3 districts are housed in administrative support. So mostly legal, things like that. But the big change for this fiscal year is the addition of a specific dedicated position funded half with Urban Renewal, half with the city, but meant to carry out project support and improve community outreach and community engagement activities. So that's a coordinator level position that will be housed in the city manager's office. Any questions on the Urban Renewal General Fund before I move into the districts? And with my screen, folks will just have to shout out because I can't see you.
Hey, Will, this is Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Is the new coordinator position a full FTE, or so it would be you as a partial FTE and then as the manager and then this new full-time person? Is that right?
Yeah, it's a brand new face that will be half funded here in the Urban Renewal General Fund. So 50% of a full-time person is here, and then 50% of their cost is in the city's budget in the admin fund.
So they would be between city functionality and urban renewal functionality. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of adding horsepower to community engagement and project completion, citywide and urban renewal. Correct.
Okay, thanks.
So here, the Columbia Cascade District, and when we got here, it's this could be the last year that it operates, or maybe 1 or 2 more years, depending on how big of a project we take on. But really look back all the way to what the city looked like before urban renewal investment changed how we know downtown to be. The over by Full Sail and those new redeveloped condos that used to be, you can see a gravel and dirt road. And then up to one of the more recent projects is across from City Hall and the State Street revitalization. That this is just one picture of right by City Hall, but stretched all the way up to Riverside Community Church and then down, wrapping around First Street. So the Columbia Cascade District has $4.6 million that can either be deployed or it can be relinquished and sent back to the overlapping districts. The proposed budget makes appropriations of $100,000 to repaint street lamps, $145,000 to remove all of the coin-only Dunkin' meters and replace those with the same Calais payment, multi-method payment kiosks that are on Oak Street. $245,000 for wayfinding signage. And that's really a placeholder. This is to initiate this project, and so we'll need to scope it as well out of that $245,000. But this is to create downtown character, to help tourists find their way around. So it's both aesthetic and functional, and this is something that a lot of cities use in their downtown cores. $925,000 to aid in Second and Oak signalization. The Columbia and Rand realignment is about all that our road fund can handle in the city, and the way that we are going to continue to keep both of these projects on track, Cascade and Rand realignment and signalization and Second and Oak, is if Columbia Cascade District can help take on the Second and Oak signalization. And then the huge elephant in the room is whether or not whether or not we're going to do a parking garage at Columbia Lot, but whether or not we're going to use urban renewal money to do it. So I was looking at old historic photos, and it appears that the Columbia Lot used to be a fruit packing warehouse, and may have burned down or been damaged by a fire and removed and become the Columbia Lot. And it was deeded over to the city in the mid-90s with from the Port of Hood River to the city of Hood River, with just a promise that someday we will build structured parking on it. No specific timeline, but there is a specific timeline to whether or not urban renewal money is going to be used on this, because we can't continue to hold on to idle cash in the Columbia Cascade District indefinitely. So the proposed budget does basically create placeholder appropriations to start preliminary design, scoping, and creating a business plan to see how what the funding mechanism, if this is going to be sufficient, what other funding mechanisms may need to be put into play, such as bonding against parking revenues, implementing a local improvement district, or something of that nature, and creating a sound business plan and deciding whether or not we want to create a parking garage for downtown. So that's quite a bit for Columbia Cascade. I'm sure there's some questions there.
Will, this is Mark again. My understanding is that we have to use this money for capital expenditures. And so all of these make sense except the repaint street lamps to me. Are we on solid lighting there to use it for that?
See where that kind of does get close to maintenance. I feel comfortable with it, that it's basically, where maintenance would maybe be continual washing, updating. This is really stripping them down and painting them again. And that hasn't been done in over 10 years. So it's not really a routine exercise. This is really a very expensive and then sort of long time coming, and will last for a long time coming here out. But I completely get the counter argument as well. But I personally feel comfortable with it.
So, and maybe the more important question is, we're approving a budget, but then the agency will discuss and approve a project. Is that within that budget? Is that a true statement?
At this dollar amount, we definitely need to bring the contract back to you for approval.
Because I have some concerns about the parking structure project, but I don't have any concerns about budgeting for it because I think that sounds smart. But I certainly would want an agency discussion before we do very much work on it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yep. This is about creating budgeted appropriations for the next year. And, and certainly this is a huge project that we would not sort of stray far with Urban Renewal Agency Board check-in.
Cool. Thank you.
Will, this is David, does the second and oak signalization allocation assume 100% of the cost of that project would be done with urban renewal funds, or are there other participating funding sources?
If Mark joins the call, he may be able to help. I know that it's taking over the city's responsibility from here on out. There's been significant expenditure from the city already out of the road fund. And I don't have the dollars amount handy, but we've spent a fair amount to get it to a good level of design. And I don't know whether or not ODOT has contributed any funds off the top of my head. Mark, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm on. ODOT will not be providing any funding for the second and oak signal. It's all funding by the city.
Okay. And that captures the full cost of what the city's participation would be.
We're hoping that that's the extent of the funding.
That's needed going forward. We've spent a fair bit already. Right. Full cost project. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to just comment on the streetlights for 1 second. I believe the streetlights, if we don't paint them, they will degrade, and at some point they'll be rusted enough for us to require replacement. And that $100,000, I believe, is going to allow me to replace the globes, which are in bad shape as well. So there is a actual replacement of part of that streetlight that will take place with the $100,000. Just as an aside.
Thank you for that, Mark. Appreciate it.
Hey, Will, I have another question. This is Gary. Back to the Columbia lot parking structure, and I apologize if I missed this when I walked away for a second, but what is, like, do we have a total cost for that? Is we going to cover all of that with this, or I don't really have a scope of how much such a structure costs?
Yeah, it's pushing, it could be as much as $50,000 a space. And we'd be talking maybe 300 plus spaces. So no, this is not coming anywhere near close to funding the cost of a parking structure.
So this is just to get the ball rolling, and then
it's being part of a funding mix. So maybe 3 million here, maybe another 4 million borrowed against future parking revenues that it's going to generate, and then maybe another 3 million approved by the downtown businesses through an assessment on themselves. You know, that could be what we could weave together to maybe get this done.
Okay, and we've been like, I mean, I feel like I remember hearing about this at least 15 years ago. We were working on figuring out that lot. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I kind of referenced in the Urban Renewal Agency budget yeah, it was talked about in the mid 1990s at minimum since then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else on the Columbia Cascade, I will move on to Waterfront District. So here's kind of just showing how much the Waterfront District has developed in 2006, just prior to the Urban Renewal Agency being created, and then in 2018, and it's even built out a little bit more since then. So sort of illustrating the impact of what Urban Renewal can do. And this budget is really simple. The rest of it's going to the waterfront storm line to continue that and keep it moving. We lost $1.7 million in lottery funds when lottery revenues fell ahead of COVID. Lottery revenues are picking back up. And I know our city manager, Rachel Fuller, was recently giving testimony to the Oregon legislature to lobby to get this refunded again. We're hoping to get American Rescue Plan monies. You know, we're talking to our state and federal representatives, trying to get money from any place we possibly can. But right now, Urban Renewal is kind of our locally controlled funding mechanism, and the board saw fit due to the emergency nature of this relocation to dedicate the remainder of the Urban Renewal monies to this project. The funding gap still remains at $3 million that we're going to need to find between now and the next couple of years when we get all the way through to phase 4. Phase 1 is complete. We may be able to start construction on phase 2 later this summer. If not, it will be next construction season. And then we're probably 2 years out from phases 3 and 4.
Bill, I have a question on that that you just touched on, but the potential, since we still have this big gap of raising the maximum indebtedness, not my favorite thing to do, but it seems like a lot of the districts now are more flush with money than they were a year or two ago. And so they might not object terribly to that. And that district grew so fast and generated the money back so quickly that it might be worth a look into. But what would the maximum indebtedness, do you have any clue what that might generate?
Yeah, so this as you know, this district is a powerhouse. It's absolutely unbelievable, the growth in assessed value that's coming out of this waterfront district. We're up to, it's likely going to generate nearly $1 million in tax revenue this coming up fiscal year, where it was about half that if you look at actual 2018-19 in your budget. So that's the type of growth we're seeing here. Now that has to do a lot with several large developments that are coming off of enterprise zone tax abatement. So right, there's not as much construction going on there currently as there was in the past 5 years. But still, so it's generating about $1 million a year. That's going to continue to go up. So if we wanted to increase maximum indebtedness by that $3 million, it would roughly continue the life of this district another 3 years. I think it will probably phase out in 2023 right now.
Thanks.
And that's true even if the agency agrees to increase the indebtedness? Is that, I might have misunderstood.
Oh, the district will last longer if we increase the maximum indebtedness, because it will take time to pay it back. So no, if we don't indebtedness, I think it's going to phase out 2023, 2024 right now.
Sorry, I was being dim. Yeah.
So Will, I guess to follow up on Kate's question, with respect to the funding gap, if we were to increase the indebtedness and then we were to find out that we were able to fill that gap some other way, could we then make another decision down the road of canceling the increased indebtedness?
Yeah, you could choose not to. We could just, there's a motion at the end of this meeting tonight that really, where it lays out, it basically is us making an order to the assessor to continue to process this. If we don't pass those motions and those resolutions, the assessor will just put this back onto the general rolls. Every single year we reapprove and reauthorize division of tax for renewal purposes.
Thank you.
This is Rudy. I mean, it would make sense to me, if you've got a major infrastructure investment like this, that was somewhat surprising. And you also have a district, more or less pays for itself or, kind of covers it, buying some more time so that you can finish the infrastructure investment and have the district take care of it makes a lot of sense to me. If it was going backwards, maybe a different story, but yeah, there will be enterprise zone money coming back to the city, I'm sure, with all the construction slowing down in that area. And it would make sense to me just knock this out and get it done with and use district dollars if it's it seems to be that promising, my opinion.
And I think if we got money from other sources, lottery funds or some other state funding or something, or infrastructure money that comes from the feds, that, then we'd have the choice. We could just retire it, or, there's other projects down there that kind of didn't get done because we had to do this. So, at that point, we could make a decision to do something different with the money if we wanted to.
Right. There's that. Yeah. The adopted 2008 waterfront plan was not fully completed. There's still projects for habitat restoration and recreational improvements. One of the bigger ones was really completing Riverside Drive and adding sidewalks and things like that, which I think is pretty roundly nobody thinks is needed really. So that created room for the Riverside project. But there's certainly other things in the plan or plan eligible investments that maybe aren't discreetly identified, but they are within the goals, such as extending infrastructure to lot 1 that would fit within as well if we increased MI.
This is Mark again. Is it true that with this budget, the agency has all the tools it needs to have this discussion and decide whether to increase indebtedness in the following budget year? Is that true? It's not, this isn't tying the hands of the agency, right?
No, if the agency wants to do that, there could be some, I definitely think there would be some charges from our legal counsel, working through the process, maybe some consultant help from some of the urban renewal consultants out there to walk us through that process of getting overlapping district. But we're talking money that would fit, that we can find. It's not big dollars, thousands, not tens of thousands. Yeah. Okay. Next, I'll move on to the Heights District. And Dustin, who has taken lead on this project, might jump in and help me answer questions on this. But really, it's the MIG contract, that 3-phase contract that the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee recommended and the agency board adopted, considered in some all 3 phases, but has only executed phase 1. And phase 1 should be moving forward. I just saw draft stakeholder engagement summaries in my inbox today. So I think Dustin will be bringing those forward soon. And that's a big step moving us forward, moving us to the conclusion of phase 1, which basically gives us our goals, broad vision, direction. And then it will, this budget that's in front of you funds, if you choose to, if you're happy with the work of phase 1, choose to execute phases 2 and phases 3 of that contract, to then take those broad overarching goals and direction, turn them into design alternatives. So giving them a little bit more, making them a little bit more tangible, a little bit more visual, so that we can get even more high quality input on what folks are interested and want to see when they can see it on paper. And then finally, phase 3, getting it into a preliminary design, cost estimating, and having a conceptual timeline of implementation, the actual construction projects. So that's mostly that, entirely in the Heights, that's what the budget is continuing that contract. And I don't know if Dustin wants to add anything to that, or also take any questions. Okay. And that is the end of the budget message and the explanation of the different districts. The script for the public hearing.
Yeah, oh, I have that, one sec.
Okay.
This one. Okay. All right. This is the time scheduled for a public hearing regarding the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022 for the River Urban Renewal Agency. Now we'll take public testimony. Mr. Recorder, has anyone registered to speak or provided written testimony?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay. In that case, the public hearing on fiscal year 2021-2022 proposed budget is now closed. And moving on to final deliberations. Does anyone have any other thoughts or input that they would like to contribute?
Good explanation, Will. Thanks for letting us ask questions during the presentation.
Yeah, I think this is very well put together and allows for the maximum, I guess, flexibility in terms of what may come down the road. And I think it's a good guiding document for that purpose. And I appreciate the work of staff to put this together as it is.
If the goal is to maintain maximum flexibility, would we be increasing maximum indebtedness tonight, or agree to that, or is that a future thing?
It's not part of tonight's budget, but if the budget committee wanted to, one thing you can do is you would be able to, pass a resolution or a motion just communicating your support for that to the agency board.
Right.
One option. That is something you want to see worked on. We think that's a good idea.
Right. We talked about, but no, I don't think anybody's made any decisions.
I have a question. If we decide to do that and we need to hire some consultants, you think there's, it's just going to take a small amount of funding, so we won't need to add that to the budget? If we need consultants to get us through that process to do it?
No, I think that fits within existing appropriations. If we were creating a new goal or creating a new project, that'd be much more expensive. But really what we're saying is that existing plan that we've already put a bunch of work into drafting, and we already has all the goals lined out, what we're saying is it's going to cost more money. So I think that's a pretty more streamlined process to take to the overlapping districts to get their concurrence. That's my take right now.
Thanks.
Any other things to review? Okay. If hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the 2021-2022 budget.
I move to approve the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Saunders and a second from Mr. Merriweather to approve the budget. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We would also entertain a motion to request tax increment revenues.
I move that the waterfront plan area and Heights District plan area requests the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457 as applicable, and that Columbia Cascade plan area requests a partial levy of $535,000 for the fiscal year 2021-2022.
I'll second that.
A motion from Councilor Saunders, and a second from Councilor Conan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. That's it, everybody. Thanks. Meeting adjourned.
Great. Thank you all for your service on this and the good discussion. We do need to wait till 7 p.m. Because that's the time that we noticed for the budget committee. So feel free to mute yourself and turn off your video, and we'll reconvene at 7 o'clock. And thank you, advisory committee members. We won't.
I'm just looking at that. The race to 70%. Do you know what our percentage is for the county right now?
Yeah, well, I just know what was published in Oregon Live. It's about 65.2% that have received their first dose. I believe that's the number.
Okay, so another 8% additional for the whole state we have to get.
Yeah, and Hood River County is one of the top in the state vaccination rates.
And as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, we started vaccinating 12 to 15-year-olds.
It was a great clinic. Loved the touch of the ice cream.
Right?
All of that is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Gladys, are they doing stuff at the schools?
It'll be a mix. So last week's clinics did take place at the high school, but today they took place at the clinic.
Gotcha.
So it'll be a mix of both.
Okay, so at 7 o'clock, we've remained live the whole time, so there's no going live. So we can kick it off whenever you're ready, Grant.
So most everybody's ready to go. Calling this meeting to order of the Hood River City Budget Committee. First up is reviewing and approving the minutes from May 5th of 2021. Are there any corrections or changes that are needed? If not, entertain a motion to approve them.
I will move we approve the minutes from May 5th, 2021.
I will second.
A motion from Councilor Saunders and a second from Councilor Rivera to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is the Public Works budgets. Well,
And we'll have Public Works Director Mark Janik give this presentation.
Good evening. Let me share my screen. Where's my- 1 second. Pull it up. Okay. There it is. Okay, great. I'm going to have a short summary before I go through the presentation. And then questions whenever you want, during, after. Okay. Good evening. City Council members, mayor, and committee members. Unfortunately, I've only met a few of you in person during my 7 months on the job, but I would like to say that I'm impressed with the Public Works Department personnel in general, and I'm enjoying the position of director. A general summary of my impressions of Public Works and some changes that have taken place. Public Works has 3 main areas: operations, engineering, capital projects, and building. There are 12 operations personnel who have so far shown up for all emergency callouts, have shown that they respect machinery assets and are very personable. Major change in operations has been the promotion of an in-house employee to operations foreman and the contracting with the local landscape company for some park maintenance and irrigation work, including some downtown streetscape locations. There are 5 engineering personnel who are very knowledgeable, extremely good to work with. Major change in engineering so far since I've been here has been the hiring of a new development engineering firm to review development plans and the transfer of the city engineer responsibilities from a private consultant to an in-house employee. The building division has recently been altered to include 1 in-house employee, and we have contracted the services of the Hood River County Building Department to perform the duties of building official, plan reviewer, and building inspector. Private consultant work relative to the building division has been reduced by about 95%. So far since I've been here, I've not received a complaint relative to any of the public work personnel. Overall budget for Public Works in the coming year is approximately $25 million. $17 million of that is capital improvement projects, and approximately $8.65 million is for operations. The change from last year to this year in operations, we've actually decreased slightly in operations. The big change is we were budgeted $4.5 million for capital projects last year, and we are ramping up substantially in the coming year. The overall goal for Public Works Department is to better match our approved budgeted spending with the upgrading of our infrastructure assets. Previous budget meeting last week, there was some mention about cost savings that Public Works has tried to initiate. There was mention about a tire changing apparatus and also use of a new auction site for our vehicles. There has been a focus on trying to save money, try to do things in a slightly different way. The tire changer is one of those examples. We are purchasing a tire changer. We change substantial number of tires every year, police vehicles, public works vehicles, and we've been using a local company to do that. However, it does cost a lot of money, and we figure that by buying a tire changer, which is approximately $30,000, $35,000, and using our own existing personnel, the savings could be as much as $150,000 over the next 15 years. That's one example. We have switched for the most part to use a online auction for our vehicles, Gov Deals. So far, we've had a lot of success with that, and we've increased our expected sale prices of our used vehicles by over 100%. So we're trying to look at other ways to save money, but those are a couple examples. The capital expenditures during the coming year include 3 water and sewer projects on Cascade, Prospect, and Sherman Roads, avenues. Right now, we're between 90 to 100% ready with our drawings for bidding. The wastewater treatment plant is going to hopefully start bidding within next month on a UV project. We're also going to be installing a pH enhancer. We're going to start work drawings and then work hopefully on a biosolid storage structure enlargement, and also digester redesign at the site. We might see a phase 2 of the waterfront stormwater project. Might see movement on that. And thank you for approving the painting of the streetlights and installing new globes on a substantial number of those, and also the additional Calais machines. It's much appreciated, and it will save money.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
I'm only seeing the title slide. I just was going to point that out because I don't know if you think if you're moving the slides.
No, I'm going to start moving the slides
Okay.
right now.
Okay, sorry. I just didn't want you to have done a bunch of work and we didn't get to see it. Okay. So.
No, sorry. I was just like my summary statement. That's all. Okay. So the Department of Public Works, hold on a second. We take care of our services include all city-owned facilities, providing professional and technical support to other city departments. Our responsibilities include streets, parking meters, parks, sanitary sewer, stormwater collection, the water system, and the engineering and building departments. Separately, we're also responsible for operations at the wastewater treatment plant. We do have a separate consultant services company that takes care of that, Jacobs, but we are responsible for administration of the plant and making sure everything is running correctly, as well as capital projects. Our personnel are required to be experienced in all aspects of our operations. We only have 12 operations people, and so there's a lot of work being done, particularly emergency work that's done by everybody. So everybody needs to know a lot of other people's jobs.
Mark,
Yes.
could you talk about on that last slide, there's 2 less full-time equivalents. Is it, or two additional full-time equivalents this next year?
No, that was for last year. Currently, we are, there's probably 4 positions total in Public Works that are not filled. So there's no positions being added this year. That was for, I guess 2 were added last year. But as of right now, I believe there's 4 positions that are vacant.
And you need to fill those, or you're just not going to fill them right now, or what?
Well, one of the positions is the building official who recently left about a month ago. 2 positions in operations. I'm actually waiting to see if there should be a reshuffling of personnel in operations, or if we can do something in a different manner. And then the last position, I believe, is in building, and there was an inspector position that is in that budget, but it doesn't appear that we're going to be filling that position. Okay, the street department provides maintenance and repairs on all public right-of-ways. There's approximately 63 miles of roadway that need to be taken care of. This includes annual roadway paving projects, which you will see probably 3 of in the coming month and a half, hopefully. Maintenance of all streetlights and street trees, sanding and plowing during the wintertime, and then keeping roadways clear of debris in all seasons. Parks Department provides maintenance and repairs for 19 city-owned parks and open spaces that total approximately 73 acres. That provides venues for recreation, gatherings, activities. It's year-round maintenance and repair operations at these locations. Recently, we've increased focus on park properties in terms of maintenance. You might have seen some of the improvements we've made at the parks, some of the parks. So we've had a recent focus on that. Sanitary sewers, sanitary sewer division, maintenance and repairs for approximately 60 miles of sanitary sewer pipe and associated facilities, including 7 sanitary sewer lift stations. There's constantly operational tasks using the combination vacuum jetter vehicle to reduce incidents and to reduce pipe blockages, repair broken pipes and manholes, root reduction within pipes. The photograph in the slide there shows some roots. This is I don't want to say typical, but a lot of pipes in Hood River are vitrified clay. And there has been some cracking as well as separation of the pipes, and street trees and other trees on private property are extremely good at finding water and getting into these pipes and blocking them. Stormwater Division provides maintenance and repair for 50 miles of underground stormwater piping and associated catch basins. Constant operational tasks for this division include street sweeping and also the use of a combination jetter as well to clear the piping and structure repairs in pipes and manholes. These personnel respond to a lot of emergency stormwater related issues, flooding of streets. Although you don't have a lot of flat areas in the Hood River, however, there is a substantial amount of water that goes down your streets and does pond in any kind of flat area. So you won't see these guys at nighttime, but they are out a lot, particularly in the spring and fall. Water Division maintains and repairs 83 miles of pipe and associated facilities, including 3,600 service connections, 1,500 water valves, 36 pressure relief valves, 53 blow-off valves, and over 400 fire hydrants, 3 reservoirs, and a chlorination station. Daily operations include water meter maintenance, water supply quality analysis, and making sure a safe and constant flow of water is available. One thing that has been added recently is the Mosier water meter project that you've sure heard about and we've talked about. That's going very well. The engineering department division, also capital projects. They establish standards, provide information, recommendations, and services for construction and the improvement of city's infrastructure. This division has a responsibility for planning and implementation of capital projects, private plan review, permit issuance, construction inspection, and general development activities. During the next few years, several years actually, we're going to try to average 3,000 replacement of 3,000 linear feet of water main and possibly sanitary sewer per year. As I believe everybody knows, we do have, it's not a problem with lead connections in some of our pipes. We haven't had any lead issues at all, really ever. But the state of Oregon is requiring that we replace all of our lead connections in our water mains. And there's approximately 30,000 linear feet of water main that we need to replace. So it's going to cost a lot of money, but obviously at the end, it'll be safer for everyone. The building division ensures all proposed building construction in the city is performed safely and properly in accordance with applicable state and local building and mechanical codes. They are constantly reviewing plans, performing inspections. As I mentioned, we have recently transferred a substantial amount of this responsibility to the County of Hood River under a consultant, basically a consultant contract. So far, everything's been going very well. Our productivity has increased and costs have dropped substantially. We've also updated our fee schedules to increase our revenue. And finally, a comment about council work plan. This mostly has to do with the water and sewer line reconstruction project. We have also initiated a I&I project to find pipes that we don't know about that are leaking. One problem we have with our wastewater treatment plant is that when it does rain hard, we increase our flow by approximately 400%. And the reason for that is because we have pipes that are cracked, maybe not collapsed, but they're cracked. And they allow water into them, and that water flows to our treatment plant. And sometimes it becomes too much. So we're doing an I&I program to find these pipes and then repair them. And also we are working on a capital improvement plan for parks to improve the play structures, capital improvements on those properties. And that's my presentation.
I have a question for you. Given the price of materials over the last year and the increases associated with those, have you had any problems with bids staying within budget, or do you forecast your bids might come in higher than you expect because of the increase in materials costs?
I believe we haven't, the projects that we have done so far have been within our expected budget. We are waiting on roadway projects, and we will be bidding out numerous other projects. A lot of those construction costs have to do with the actual building materials, wood, plywood, copper, things like that. A lot of our projects don't require some of those products. So I'm hoping that the prices won't go up on us. Now, some of our underground pipe projects, I know that there's been an increase in plastic pipe. It's possible that we might be using, say, concrete pipe instead of plastic pipe, because I don't think all pipes have gone up in value or sales as much as others. I'm hoping, now the price of oil has recently gone up, so that might affect some of our roadway projects. So right now, I'm not sure. We haven't done any actual building projects, structures, so I haven't seen any issues so far. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And then if you're looking at changing materials of said pipes from plastic to concrete, would that change the operating cost or longevity of said pipes?
Not really. Although concrete pipes, I'd rather use plastic, but concrete, let's say for storm sewer, is perfectly fine to use. For sanitary sewer, we would have to use plastic. And if there's a cost increase, we will see the cost increase there.
Okay, thanks.
Are we going to be going through each fund, or is this the time to ask about any of the funds at all?
Any fund for public works.
Okay.
I might also just point people to page 56 if you want to see the capital work plan in one page. The font is getting pretty small because it's hard to fit all the projects that Mark's team is going to be doing over the next 5 years. You can see we're really ramping into overdrive, and that's really a culmination of the utility rate increases, and on all the planning work, master plans coming together to be quite a bit of work, capital improvements to our city's really critical infrastructure over the next several years.
So I have a question for Mark. And Mark, obviously, thanks for your presentation. Great presentation. Obviously, you deal with a whole wide range of things, and you're the person that's most familiar with that and will. Of all of the things all the things that are budgeted, what is there anything that causes you concern, or what are you most concerned with?
What I'm most concerned with is the underground projects that we have planned and that I know that are in the city's future. And the reason why I'm concerned with that is just from past history. Once you open the ground and you're replacing pipe and you're replacing more than one kind of pipe, and you've got roadway and you've got curbs and service lines, you really don't know what's under there. You can televise pipes, but sometimes the soil structure is not what you think it was, or where it should be. Sometimes the roadways are weaker than you thought, and there's change orders, and that's what concerns me the most. Not that I expect that to happen, but from what I've seen so far, for instance, some of the roadways, there's not much in the way of base stone material. We're going to be opening up roads to put in sanitary sewers and water mains and storm sewers, and sometimes it's going to be tough. We might have change orders that reflect the necessity of putting in more stone or doing semi-reconstruction on roadways when we weren't expecting to do that. So of anything, that's what concerns me the most. But that's just a normal paranoid concern from somebody that's just done a lot of projects and has seen that before.
Thank you.
I've got a question, Mark. So, thanks for providing the longer term plan, the 5-year view. You're spending 17 out of 50 in this coming year. That's 35%. You feel comfortable about having the personnel and just the overall organizational infrastructure to knock out $17 million worth of capital projects in 1 year? I don't know what our trending has looked like over the last couple, but that's a big number. Do you have the manpower and the overall infrastructure to do that?
Good question. I think that we do. Just as for example, we have 3 water main sanitary sewer projects. One of those is at 100% ready for bidding. The other 2 are at approximately 90%. It's early to mid-May, so we should get all of those hopefully bid out within a month and a half. We have a UV project that's $2 million at the wastewater plant. Should be ready for bidding. That's being reviewed by the state of Oregon right now. Hopefully that should be out for bidding within 3 weeks. And it's a good question. I think that we do. We have hired. We have a new plan review consultant engineering firm, and we also have a new wastewater treatment engineering firm to review and help me administer that part of the city. And that's being a big help as well. So it is a lot to bite off. Some of these projects are relatively large within themselves. So I'm hoping that we do.
And
we're gonna try.
The city council and budget committees have been incredibly supportive of the initiatives to improve infrastructure. So should we need additional resources, please know that we wouldn't hesitate to put those additional resources in. So appreciate support for these initiatives. Thank you.
One more comment on that is that when we bid these projects out, we are going to be bidding out. The consultants who design the projects are going to be providing engineering inspection as these projects. So I'm not gonna have our one inspector inspecting all these projects. So just an aside, so that's additional manpower that's gonna be helping the city make sure everything gets done correctly.
Thank you.
Related to that, let's say hypothetically, the west side of town, you have a bunch of private developers that start to go ham out there and toss in a whole lot of houses just because. Would you still have enough time to address those needs of private developers or housing developers and also do all of these projects at the same time, potentially?
Well, we have an outside consultant that reviews the private development side of this. Our in-house city engineer also assists with that. However, if that does take place, our contracts, I'll be having a contract come before the board for the fiscal year for that development engineer. I'll request an increase to that contract if for some reason we need to have more projects reviewed.
Thanks.
I had a couple questions. A couple of the funds had in the revenue a pretty big number for loan. No, I lost it. It's like loan proceeds. What is that?
Will, do you want to take care of that?
Yeah, I'll take care of that. So I'm really excited from a finance perspective with the plans that Mark is putting together, because we've just been running on a cash basis. This is really long-term big infrastructure that's going to serve the community for the next 30 plus years. But we haven't been getting the activity, even though we've built it into our rate plans and our financial plans to do a lot of investment right now and pay for it over time. We just haven't been getting the throughput that we need to borrow money yet. But we have the capacity, we have the revenue, we have the rates in place to support borrowing. And that's what this capital plan is going to do, is actually get us to fulfill those financial plans, borrow, and then pay back over time these big long-term capital investments.
Well, are those the interfund loans from like the equipment replacement, or are those private loans, or both?
Yeah, we did plug in a interfund loan from the equipment replacement fund. I can pull that up. So you'll see that when we get to the internal service funds, we have a $3 million loan that I believe is going to the sewer fund. And yes, we're going to use that first, but $3 million loan, internal service fund loan, and a $17 million capital improvement program means we're also going to, if we fulfill and keep up with this pace, we're going to need some external sources of capital as well, which, our credit rating is good. It's improved over the years, and we have the financial plans and the revenue to back borrowing and we can borrow at a very good tax exempt rate. But there will be some external need. But we're definitely going to tap our internal sources. We'll always tap our cheapest sources of financing first.
One other little question was, I was wondering on the road fund, there is intergovernmental revenue STIP, and is that fund money?
You're asking all the exciting questions for me. That is money in that is held. So we get a certain amount of state gas tax goes to the city road fund, and a certain amount of federal gas tax also goes. We get a little sliver of that, but the federal money flows through the state, and they do a cash swap. I think it's something like 96 cents on the dollar. The state of Oregon handles federal money all the time. It's very administratively intensive to deal with all the federal constraints. So it's a really great program that the state does, is they swap state gas tax money for federal gas tax money. They say, okay, that federal money that's flowing through we'll hold that at the state and we'll pay you 96 cents on the dollar and give you state money, which is a lot easier to handle at the local level. So that sort of annual drip of money from the feds has been accumulating in an account with the state of Oregon. It's always been on our books, and you'll see there's sort of been a continuing line item for STP monies that come in, and the expenditure of STP monies just hasn't happened. And I think it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind, but Haley Ellett, give all the credit to her, our new management analyst, worked with and found a way that we can just get the balance of that account that has sort of been building up in our name, being held at ODOT, just get it all transferred to us. And it's going to be used for Cascade and RAN alignment. So it's money we've always had. It's just we're going to be able to hold it on our books rather than ODOT holding it for us. And I'm really excited to get that $1 million transferred over.
Thanks, Will. Also, I was wondering, are we looking at the Jacobs contract this year? I couldn't remember if that was part of the plan.
We're looking at this year, but it's not up until next year, I believe.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have two quick questions. On engineering, there's a large jump in professional services. I'm just wondering what that is for.
The jump in that line item, that's for the professional services. Historically, we had a different engineering firm doing consulting for us for both engineering as well as for the wastewater treatment plant. This year, because we hadn't done a bidding for those two positions, those two needs of ours, we went out for bid, and we got two different firms instead. Now, I'm not sure why previously the contract wasn't shown on that line item, but the reason why there's a big increase this year is because the monies on that line item reflect the contract for our engineering consultant that reviews our private plants and does consulting with us on our codes. So there's been a big jump there. We've always spent the money, but it was drawn from some other fund.
Yeah, I'll just add to that 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 also corresponds to that supplemental budget that we had at last city council meeting, upping the engineering department. You know, I think we always go into every fiscal year with the best of hopes of what we'll spend on engineering won't be as much as it is. And this budget just trues up to the true actual historical spend that we need in our engineering program, so that we don't have to keep coming to you with supplemental budgets, you know, at the end of the year.
Okay. Thank you. And then this may be the same thing, but professional services under wastewater treatment plant also jumped. That's the same contract?
Yes, it's the same contract.
Sorry.
But
what used to be the same?
For a similar reason.
Okay.
That is that's the management contract. So different, yeah, like Mark said, different contractors. This is the oversight of Jacobs and to help us get engineering projects done at the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
That was approved by city council this current fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
And so the right now we don't have a building department director, and so the services that the county is providing and then additional contract services, if we need those, are those under that line too, or is that a separate section?
The county is providing the services of that were previously the responsibility of our building official. So going forward, we did keep the building official's salary in the building division costs, but depending on how everything goes, we might not spend that money. Instead, we'll be paying the county for doing the same services.
Oh, okay. That's how you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mark, one of the ads on the wastewater treatment plant is the industrial pretreatment program as well. So
Correct.
we have a new permit with the state, and one of the requirements is the industrial pretreatment program.
It's a new discharge permit.
It's not new. Currently, we have industrial pretreatment regulations in our code. However, they're out of date, and our new permit requires that, that's not just us, it's virtually all municipalities that have a wastewater treatment plant. They're required to update or create new industrial pretreatment programs for their cities, municipalities, counties, whoever it might be. And so we are going through that right now, as a matter of fact.
Just curious, Mark, would such a facility have mitigated the recent event?
With such a facility, I mean, a program itself?
Yeah.
It's possible. More likely, what would have avoided the current event would be just more data from certain flows from most likely a commercial and industrial components in the city. We're not sure what caused the most recent event. It could have been industrial, it could have been commercial, it could have been something as totally strange as somebody coming and depositing waste into our, we have a location where RVs can dump waste that's then processed by our plant. It's possible somebody came in and deposited a really bad toxic slug of something there. So we're looking right now to see what caused it, but we're not exactly sure. So the IPP and other things that we do, such as the recent discharge permits that we issued or we are issuing right now, will help. Also, things that we do at the treatment plant, improvements such as the pH enhancer that I mentioned previously, will help adjust the pH at the plant in case we do have a fluctuation, and that would help as well.
Thanks, Mark.
If there's no other public works questions, I can run very quickly through all the other funds and wrap up all the staff presentation for tonight.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Hey, Mark, can you, let's see. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna have the, I'm just gonna quickly run through the restricted revenue, internal service fund and reserves fund. I won't be able to see you again, so please just shout out questions. I'm gonna go quickly because most of these have defined purposes, pre-planned, and there's not too much discretion involved. But I'm very happy to answer any questions. So the restricted revenue fund is programs that have a dedicated, that their funding source is dictated by contract, statute, law, something of that nature. So I'm going to skip building, as we've already talked about that. Go into, so local improvement district is the State Street local improvement district, and we assessed all properties with frontage onto State Street, and we have a few remaining properties that are still paying their assessments, and those get funneled through to the Columbia Cascade District. And if anyone had done the math as to why it has more money to spend than its original MI, the difference is this assessment doesn't count against MI. It was an add-on to the spending of Columbia Cascade. Small grants is where if we get something like a travel organ grant to put in some signage, or some money one wants to give some money to the tree committee or something like that, that it's not worth setting up an entire sub fund for. This is where we keep those sort of small activities that shouldn't be in the general fund separated out. And this is where we have the hydro, so the city match portion of the hydroelectric feasibility study is in the general fund. And then the portion of it, which is going to be funded by the Oregon Energy Trust, is here. So that's mostly what's going on here is hydroelectric and the water line. Continuing on that. Fire GO bond is from the levy approved by Hood River County or Hood River City voters that built our fire station and also bought a lot of our current apparatus. This is the final year. FY 21-22 will be the final year that we levy funds to pay back, and those bonds will be fully repaid. So in-city taxpayers will see their property tax bill drop somewhere between 50 and 65 cents per thousand of assessed value going into 22-23 after this is all paid off.
Hey, Will. This is Jessica. If it's fully repaid this year, what happens to that end balance?
That goes to the general fund, actually. So we can't, we can't park a cruise liner on a dime, and we have to make sure that we get enough money to pay the debt, because bondholders won't take anything less than exactly the amount that they're owed. So it's a bit of an, so there's going to be a little remainder at the end, and that money just goes into the general fund. Tourism promotion fund is where we segregate money that's dedicated to lodging, the 25% of lodging taxes that must be used for tourism promotion. And we've contracted with the Chamber of Commerce since 2009 to do that work on our behalf. So this is 25% of the total lodging taxes that the city expects to collect next fiscal year. And that's harkening all the way back to our first meeting where we talked about major revenues in their forecast. So that's just an in and out, carries no balance. Construction excise tax is 1%, is a tax levied on 1% of the value of all new construction in the city, and that's dedicated, well, it's 100% dedicated to affordable housing. But depending on whether or not it comes from residential or commercial industrial, it kind of goes into 3 different pots. It's either developer incentives, a city-defined housing program, and some of it is just passed straight through to the state of Oregon to promote their affordable housing programs. And right now, mostly what's going on is repayment of the Rand Road purchase, the debt that we borrowed to buy the 7 acres for Rand Road. And the really cool thing about that is I think we were the second or the third community in Oregon to pass a construction excise tax. So we get questions about it all the time from other cities and counties looking and are interested in it. And they said, how much of that you've collected have you put to use? And I can tell them over 200%, right? Because we created a revenue source and we borrowed against it. So we're able to buy, a piece of property that was I think Rachel, how much was Rand Road again? I know you know better off the top of your head.
We paid 1.2 million.
Okay, so we haven't collected 1.2 million in CET, but we were able to spend 1.2 million because we and sort of get ahead on that affordable housing and work that is so important to the city council. because we created a revenue stream.
And we also had 400,000. We had a head start because we had 410,000 in state funds.
Yeah, that too. And then basically the rest of it is we're keeping just to make sure that we can stay up on our debt service on that. But then also this will be what part of the funding mix that's put together on the Rand Road construction project when we get to that stage. So sort of a yet to be determined there. Right now, all the Rand Road work is being paid for out of the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund. And so I'll get to that after we get out of the Restricted Revenue Fund. Okay, so moving on to the Internal Service Fund. So this is activities that service departments that need to be, Oregon Revised Statute sets up the framework for how these need to be administered, and it's to charge basically the fair value of services provided internally without any eliminating any element of profit or loss. And the three programs that we provide through internally through the Internal Service Fund structure is administration. So that's city management, finance, legal, basically all the things you think of as administrative overhead, fleet and equipment, both maintenance and replacement. And then new for this year is setting aside money for compensated absences, not as a reserve, but as an internal service fund. So not based on just setting money aside via transfer, but we actually have a set formula for each bargaining group that fairly assesses them a payroll charge that is then going to be accumulated in our compensated absences internal service fund. So when people separate employment for us, that's not a huge like one-time hit to their operating departments. It's paid for out of this compensated absence program.
I just wanted to mention, Will, that is extremely critical. And years ago, what was happening is someone would retire or leave, and they had this accrued absence money that was needed to be paid to them. And basically what would happen is we would just go without hiring someone for a year or two, and which we needed desperately to have, but we had to pay the compensated absence money out. So we didn't have the money to hire the employee. So this makes us even. So it takes care of that.
Oh, thank you for that history. I didn't, yeah, that was, yeah. Okay, so the equipment maintenance is all zeroed out for 21-22. We talked about that quite a bit in a previous meeting about how that has been rolled in to the fleet and equipment program. Administration is mostly steady, steady as we go. The two major changes that you'll see for administration are the addition of that 0.5 FTE that is going to be half dedicated to urban renewal, as well as money for servers and switches, infrastructure servers and switches. And that's really the backbone of our IT infrastructure that everything else is kind of built off of. And I believe that's just over $100,000 in this budget and part of our 5-year IT strategic plan.
Will, this is Mark. Does that include money for the rest of the, that we've talked about, council communication improvements? Is that within what you just described as servers and et cetera?
That is not, but we are hoping that we will get that project done this fiscal year.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to jump the gun on that one, but Bill is making really good progress on that, and I think you may see that done this fiscal year.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, the internal service fund for fleet. We talked quite a bit before about how the formulas are all set, but here's the specific vehicles that are up for replacement this year. Some are carried forward. or we're going to get delivery of them next fiscal year, even though we put in the order last fiscal year. So they're kind of a roll forward. And there's, we've talked quite a bit about our energy goals as a city. And one sort of very promising or potentially promising development is that we have heard that Ford is going to be coming out with an all-electric F-150. They're going to be sort of rolling the first announcement on the 19th, and then hopefully selling it in mid-2022. So we're going to critically evaluate our timing of our truck purchases here in light. We don't know enough to know whether or not the specs of an a fully electric F-150 will meet our needs. But it's we definitely know that is a major priority of the city council, and we're keeping that in mind. And we do have the interfund loan budgeted here. First to sewers doing the most spending. And so we have that budgeted, and we'll, that will, before that money is actually moved, it will come before the city council via resolution, then specify a repayment period that cannot exceed 10 years and also set an interest rate. And this is the compensated absence program that we were just talking about, and the payroll charges. So this is based on the compensated, how quickly each one of these bargaining groups accumulates compensated absences. And FCS, the same people who did our utility rate study, has trained me and Monica on how to work the formula, work the model. So these rates will be continually updated every year.
Will, this is Mark. Does that mean that we've filled the bucket with everything backdated, and now this is making sure that as people accrue more stuff, that we're making sure that we're paying for it? So we're good. Okay. All right.
No, well, great question.
Oh, okay. All right.
So when you don't, our vehicle and equipment program is a great example of what it looks like when you are 100% funded. And when you're 100% funded, you carry millions of dollars in idle cash for future purchases that haven't happened yet. Versus the annual charges are really kind of your continual use, right? The kind of the lease cost, so to speak, of 1 year's worth of use of the vehicle, and drawing that analogy to compensated absence. These are the charges for 1 year's use of an employee and what they're likely going to accumulate. The balance in the internal service fund is not 100% funded. And I don't think that it should be, because we're never going to have everyone retire all at once. And I don't think it's worth carrying a balance. If we were going to 100% fund it, I would also say that it would be inappropriate to do it by adding a surcharge to current employees. So I think that would need to be funded by a transfer from the general fund to the internal service fund. But I think so this is to some extent an actuarial exercise, as how many people would have to retire all at once in order for us to run out of cash. And I think right now with the balance that we're carrying in there is an acceptable level. Maybe we might consider doing a transfer to add a little bit more buffer in future years, but for now, I think this is good.
Yeah, like what the mayor said, 8 years ago, it was really a significant liability, and so it was identified in the budget resolution. So just as long as, the goal is exactly what you stated, which is make sure that we're covering things moving forward and that we have enough money that 2 people near retirement leave, we're not really impacted, right? So.
Yep, and so we've got $111,000 that we could spend without running out of money here, which is unlikely that amount of compensated absences will be paid out.
And one of the reasons that you see the decrease in the balance is you'll remember that we settled paid a large liability that was on the books that will no longer accumulate to the books.
Right.
Okay. I'll move on to the reserves fund. So this is first up, parking in lieu, which is has not been highly used, but maybe will be used more in the future now that we've recently worked on the cost of, and it allows businesses in our business districts to buy out their parking requirements by paying into this fund that then can be used to supply shared parking assets to the district. It carries a small balance around 12,000 that could be used towards the parking structure. It's kind of just $12,000 sitting there. The PERS stabilization fund was fully deployed, put to use in order to bring 25% match from the state of Oregon and create a PERS side account that will a little over $2 million PERS side account that will grow with the rest of the invested money in the Oregon PERS trust fund and create rate credits, so reduce our future PERS costs over the next 20 years, and that dependent on market returns, which have been excellent since we've created the side account. Not so good in the last 2 days if you've been watching the markets, but we're still, I think, quite ahead and doing very well with that side account. Next up is the Affordable Housing Reserve. This was created by City Council all the way back in 2016-17, just seeded with $100,000. And this is really where we've been kind of accumulating and working on the Rand Road project here. And so this proposed budget continues to allocate money and use this for funding of the Leland consulting work is coming out of here.
Well, so, if I'm reading this right, we paid the purchase out of here. So is the loan repayment from coming back into this reserve, or?
Sorry, you're breaking up a bit.
I think my internet's bad tonight. In the fiscal year 1920 capital outlay of land of 1.2 million, which I'm assuming is Rand Road, is the CET money this year that's paying back the loan going into this reserve fund?
Nope, it's going to the bank that loaned us the money. So the money that we borrowed from Columbia Bank came into the Affordable Housing Reserve so that we could buy the land, and then the CET program is paying the money back to Columbia Bank.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. I'm seeing the loan proceeds line. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey, Will, I just had a quick question on the PERS side fund, by the way. What's the delta related to market risk? Is it straight like an index fund based sort of thing, or if the stock market tanks, or is everybody's PERS side fund suddenly gone?
Yeah. Yes. We market. It's professionally managed by the Oregon State Treasurer. It's well diversified, both in fixed income as well as equities, but also things that your average retail investor can't get into, like private equity. So they even are better diversified than we could get in if we just sort of tried to invest it ourselves. And we modeled this quite a bit when we were deciding to create the per site account. And that 25% match that we got from the state, that's a 25% return on day one. And we modeled what would that have looked like if we had invested at the exact worst time in 2007. If we would have created this site account in 2007, what would it have looked like? And with that 25% match, we would have only gone barely negative for one biennia, and then we were back into the black.
Sure. Just managing a future risk. That's all. That's what my question is just about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where some pension obligation bonds is what some people use to do this. And that is really taken on. It's right. You're borrowing at, what at your credit rating of a government entity, and you're investing at retail returns. So it makes sense. But a pension obligation bond is, is to your point, introduces a lot of risk. We didn't do that. We paid cash and we got a 25% match on our money. It's going to be pretty hard for us to not make money on this.
Sure. I'm just, do we have a maximum downside risk profile or anything like that? Like if the stock market for some reason is cut in half, do we suddenly lose half of our per site account?
Yeah. So what I've modeled is I can't remember how much it fell during 2007. We could have another 2007, and we would basically just in 2007 we lost like 20%, 25%.
Yeah, stock market back then dropped down to about a half.
Yeah,
from about 12,000 to 6.5.
That's my recollection. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I just didn't know if it was appropriate if we had like LEAP put options or something incorporated, so we wouldn't necessarily have to have as big of a risk profile, but that's just risk appetite. So
yeah, Oregon State Treasury, it's fully outsourced to them.
Okay.
They're pretty conservative to very much their detriment over the past 5 years. So, yep.
And I think it's a good question, Grant. I think the question also is, should we see some declines? What is the appetite for investing additional money into our per site account for that dollar cost averaging?
Right. Great point. Mm-hmm.
But we do get automatic 25% return right off the bat, which is not arguing against that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but thank you, Rachel. I think the interesting question going forward for the budget committee is if if things are looking good or from a city's perspective and the market goes down, do we want to make this into just a usual thing that we just plop more money into a site account on a annual basis as long as we're under 100% funded status? Should we structurally be putting money away into a site account?
It would be a separate site account, right? Because this one is we can only use it for PERS is one of the big rule, right? We can't pull this money out and buy dump trucks, right?
No, we can't invest like this for anything other than retirement. So we can't set money aside just to invest it to have more money to build more streets. We're prohibited from investing in equities for anything other than investing it for as part of the retirement trust fund.
Will, this is Rudy. I mean, you talked about the compensated absences being an actuarial exercise. Isn't this the same thing? I mean, this isn't fun money to gamble with. This is also an actuarial exercise, and you should recommend how you want to fulfill those actuarial obligations in the most reasonable way. I mean, that's kind of your job. So I view it in the same way as the compensated absences. except you have, kind of maybe another investment option that you don't have for those absences.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I was saying sort of structurally fund it until we hit an action based on PERS actuaries.
Yeah.
Reach 100% funded. If we start funding this to 110%, 120%, right now we're playing the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And facilities reserve was created back in the 18-19 budget and has been earning interest. This proposed budget, it was thought of for future facilities needs. We have a very critical need in our Saruta tennis courts right now. They're really falling apart and something needs to be done about them. Another 150K is budgeted in the general fund, and we talked about that when we were talking about the general fund. We are adding on to that 100K plus the interest that has been earned over the last 3 years in the Parks Facilities Reserve to add to make it $250,000. I'm going to be meeting with the engineers who have been looking at the Saruta tennis courts tomorrow. It's looking like maybe the very cheapest options are like 600,000 all the way up to maybe 1.4 million on the Saruta tennis courts. So I think this $250,000 that's in this budget is really something that we could have to start discussions with the Parks District and the school district, which is the primary user of the tennis courts, to see what they want to contribute as well.
So Will, this is Mark. When we made this fund, my recollection of it was a seed towards property acquisition because we saw that as a big need. I don't have a problem with making the budget like this. It seems smart to me that we know there's a need and stuff, but I would like there to be a good council discussion about whether a whole bunch of stuff related to this particular project. So before we get too far, maybe council can talk about that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, and I think this ties into when Mark Janik had in his presentation the council goals as part of our council work plan to create a multi-year parks capital plan that weaves into the countywide parks master plan that was already adopted with identifying funding sources. And that's just something, that's something that we brought back to you and that Public Works is actively working on right now.
Right. I mean, that particular location is sort of snake bit, right? So, keep adding concrete onto a swamp. Maybe you're just going to keep getting what you're getting. That's my worry, but that's not for this meeting.
No,
I do know. So.
Well, not to preview too much coming attractions, but you just guessed what we paid engineers to tell us. That wasn't the best place to pour concrete. Yeah.
Right. So maybe not do it again.
Yeah, I'm sure that will absolutely come back as a council discussion, given what we've learned. We learned that after we put together this budget. So absolutely. And thanks for mentioning the capital improvement plan. That will include things like acquisition. We don't have a dedicated funding source, but it will be a place where we can add those types of projects from the multi-jurisdictional plan.
Yeah, cool.
So I just jumping on to Mark's thing, and he's right in that this is obviously for council later, but my recollection of this fund was also, it was right around when we found out Children's Park needed to be rebuilt for astronomical amount of money. And so it wasn't just acquisition of new things, it was the maintenance and replacement of our existing stuff. And my dream when we created this had always been that we would be developing and obviously different funding mechanism and compensated absences or vehicle replacement, but having that plan, which I think is what capital improvement will get us to. So I'm really excited we're finally moving there. I'm a little bummed that we're going to enter this as we're doing that, but I get the need right now. So I'm excited for the future conversation. And thank you, Mark, for bringing it up.
Okay, and lastly is a brand new agency fund. Mark mentioned real quickly the help that we're providing to Mosier. For 3.7% of their revenues, we are collecting their reads from their meters, running it through our existing billing software and shooting out their bills to them. It has been quite a bit more setup, honestly, than I think we were expecting. So a huge thanks to our water department for getting it going up and running, and our utility billing folks. It's just recently gotten to where we want it to be, which is, I think, on getting closer to cruise control, where both Mosier and the city are benefited by sharing business systems. And also Mosier just quite honestly getting vastly improved service with the ability to pay online, set up recurring payments, and things like that that they've never had before. And we're getting a small little additional revenue source into our water fund. And this just separates that activity out so that we don't commingle it with the rest of our funds. And that is the lightning round of all the other funds.
Any other questions or anything about any of those funds for Will, Rachel, or anyone else? All right. In that case, we have a public hearing. And there is another script. Okay. Yeah, this is the right one. This is time scheduled for a public hearing regarding the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 and 2022, and the use of state shared revenue for the city of Hood River. We will now take public testimony. City recorder, has anyone registered to speak or provided any written testimony?
No one signed up. There's no comments.
In that case, the public hearing on fiscal year 2021, 2022, proposed budget and use of state shared revenue is now closed. Thanks.
We make a motion. Great. I move that state revenue sharing money be used for the purposes shown in the proposed fiscal year 2021-22 budget.
I'll second Megan's motion.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Or I mean, any further discussion about that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. And now we have the public hearing for the proposed budget. Another one? Or is that the same script?
Just we combined the state shared revenue and the budget all into one hearing. So
all right. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Deliberations.
Okay. Yep. So any final deliberations, questions, concerns, anything else anybody wants to discuss? Personally, just moving forward for council's edification, as we go through recovering from the last year, your revenue forecasts, as Will mentioned, while some might be a little conservative, are still malleable. The property taxes are still pretty static, but a transient tax is it's next to impossible still to forecast things because we don't know exactly what's going on in the industry. Things are rosier. However, if, for example, there's a new variant or something else comes up, we can just as quickly be back to where we were before, unless everybody gets vaccinated and all that good stuff. So my recommendation to everybody is just, you can make contingency plans, but don't count your chickens before they hatch on that. That's all. Anything else? Okay, if not, if there's a motion to approve the budget.
I move to approve the proposed fiscal year 2021-22 budget as submitted by the Budget Office.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Councilor Saunders, second by Mr. Bick. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Budget is approved. We need a motion on approving the property tax levies as well.
I move to approve taxes for the fiscal year 2021-22 fiscal year at the rate of $2.8112. I don't think I did that right, per thousand of assessed value for operating purposes in the general fund and $754,700 for the fire general obligation bond levy for payment of principal and interest.
I second.
We have a motion and a second on our property tax levies. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
All those opposed? Tax is approved. And that's everything on our agenda. Thanks, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all for volunteering your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for leading us, Grant.